Good afternoon, everyone. Let me begin with a simple question. Imagine you have spent 20 years becoming an expert strategist. You are the person everyone consult with. Difficult decisions have to be made. Then one morning, someone opens ChatGPT, uploaded the same information, and within 2 minutes receive a strategic report that looks surprisingly good. The question is no longer whether AI can help leaders. The real question becomes, who am I if AI can do my job? That question motivated this research. In this paper, I introduced a new construct that I called AI-induced leadership identity trait, or AILIT. So let's begin. Why it is important? Previous waves of automation mainly replaced routine works. They automated repetitive physical or administrative tasks while leaving leadership experts largely untouched. Generative AI is fundamentally different. It performs work that has historically defined leadership itself. Strategic analysis, forecasting, executive writing, performance feedback, even complex reasoning. The disruption, therefore, is not simply technological, it is existential. When AI begins performing the very activities that leaders use to define themselves, it challenged not only what leaders do, but who they believe they are. Existing AI research talks extensively about productivity, adoption, trust, and job displacement, but it says remarkably little about what happens to leaders' identity. So, for the theoretical foundation to understand this phenomena, I turn to identity theory and role identity theory. These theories argue that identities are maintained through continuous verification. Leaders repetitively perform role congruent behaviors. Those behaviors receive recognition from others. That recognition confirms that their professional's identity. The system remains psychologically stable as long as the external feedback matches the internal identity standards. But AI changes that verification process. When an algorithm performs those same leadership behaviors equally well or sometimes better, the reflected appraisal no longer match the leader's internal identity. This mismatch creates identity disruption. This is the theoretical mechanism underlying AILIT. So, which task matters? An important point is that not every task threatens identity. If AI schedules meeting or summarize documents, most leaders actually feel relieved. Those are peripheral tasks. The problem emerges when AI enters the bullseye. Identity constructive task, tasks have four characteristics. They distinguish leaders from others. They demonstrate expert judgment. They are publicly recognized, and historically they required human expertise. Like what? Like strategic planning, executive communication, nuanced feedback, and forecasting all meet these conditions. They are precisely the task where generative AI is advancing more rapidly. So let's define AILIT. Based on this reasoning, I defined AI-induced leadership identity threat as a psychological state in which leaders preserve that AI perform supplants, or credibly rival activities central to their professional identity. Three characteristics distinguish this from existing concept. First, the threat comes from a non-human agent. Second, it concerns core competence, not simply workload reduction. Third, it affects activities that are central to the leader's sense of self. This distinguishes AI-LIT from techno stress, automation anxiety, jobs insecurity, or role ambiguity. So what creates this thread? The conceptual model identifies four main antecedents. First, leader must preserve substantial overlap between AI capabilities and their own expertise. Second, leadership identity must be central to their self-concept. Third, there must be strong coupling between specific tasks and identity. For example, I am the strategy person. Finally, the AI performance must become socially visible. Once others observe that AI performs the same work, identity threat intensify dramatically. Together, these factors determine the intensity of AI LIT. There is some paths, for example, a defensive escalation. Once identity is threatened, leaders can follow two very different pathways. The first is defensive. Leader may resist AI, they may dismiss its value, they may exaggerate the uniqueness of human judgment, uh, but they may guard important tasks and refuse to delegate them to AI. Over time, unresolved trait can even produce intentions to leave the organization or leadership role altogether. This behavior are not simply irrational resistance to technology. They are attempts to protect a threatened professional identity. But it's not the only pathway. Path B is adaptive reconfiguration. Fortunately, there is another pathway. Instead of protecting the old identity, leaders can reconstruct it rather than defining themselves by execution. They redefine leadership around meta level capabilities. This includes, for example, ethical judgment, AI governance, orchestration of AI-enabled teams, and relational intelligence. The leader moves from being the expert who performs a task to the architect who integrates human and artificial intelligence in his pathway. So here AI doesn't diminish leadership, it transforms what leadership means. So there are some boundary conditions. Not every leader will experience AI, LIT equally. Several factors amplify or buffer the process. Growth mindset reduce threat because leaders interpret AI as an opportunity to evolve. Organizational narratives also matters. If AI is framed as augmentation rather than replacement, identity threat decreases. Identity complexity helps because leaders possess multiple sources of self-worth. Finally, role discretion allows leaders to redesign their own contributions. In contrast, fixed mindset, hierarchic leadership culture, and rigid role structures intensify AI LIT. Okay, let me conclude with three contributions. First, this paper introduced a new construct, AI LIT, to explain a phenomena that existing theories do not adequately capture. Second, it bridges two previous disconnected literature, leadership identity, and human AI interaction. And third, it shifts the conversation from AI replacing jobs to AI transforming identities. Organizations often assume AI implementation is primarily a technical challenge. I argue that it is equally an identity challenge as well. Leaders will not simply decide whether to adopt AI. They will first decide who they become in relation to AI. Understanding that identity transition may determine whether AI implementation succeed or fails. And finally, I'll finish where I began. The question is not can AI lead? The question is what does it mean to be a leader when AI can perform many of the tasks that once defined leadership. I believe answering that question requires expanding our theories of leadership identity. I hope AI LIT provide one step in that direction. Thank you very much. I look forward to your question and I will be delighted to be in touch. Thank you.